You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
So this dramatic story yesterday, still barely believable for my mind, that 3 A-League players have been arrested around conceding or deciding to concede certain yellow cards in exchange for money. It has certainly rocked the A-League. The players arrested, Kieran Backus, and 2 more familiar to New Zealanders, All White Clayton Lewis and former Wellington Phoenix captain and now Macarthur FC captain, Ulysses Davila. Joining us to discuss this is former All White David Chote on the show this afternoon. Afternoon, Chote, how are you? Chote, very good afternoon to you here on News Talk ZB. I can't quite hear you at the moment, so we'll see if we can bring you up on the phone at the moment here on News Talk ZB. Obviously, a dramatic story, as we heard in the opener around that, it had been a dramatic arrest yesterday. Let's go back to Chote and see if we can join him now on the line here on News Talk ZB. Unfortunately, Andy, I can't touch that. So, Chote, you've got me. Oh, there we go. Look, press a few buttons and eventually something will happen on the radio. Chote, good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us. I guess first and foremost, your reaction to this news that came out yesterday.
Unbelievable dismay, sadness. On a day when we should be talking about the positives of the game, it's really been overshadowed. And those pictures last night of the arrests was truly shocking, disturbing. Really challenging for a football fan to sort of digest, really, and particularly if you're passionate about the game and you're passionate about New Zealand football. The involvement of Clayton Lewis sort of is a double blow, if you like.
It is indeed, and I guess having a current All White involved in these things really brings it closer to home, doesn't it? And that a New Zealander was involved in this. Yeah,
when the story broke, I think they originally sort of put some ages around the players being vitally interested. I went on the Macarthur website and searched the players, but it would have been the last person I would have thought would have been Clayton Lewis. When I looked at the squad, I was trying to work out who it might be, and to see a Kiwi involved is just doubly disappointing.
I mean, obviously innocent till proven guilty, but what would be going through their minds to try and spot fix something like this in a football match?
Yeah, look, everything we talk about is subject to it being proven, but it does appear that there's something to this story. I see the A-League have already stood the players down. They've suspended them interimly under their code of conduct. It's a no-fault interim suspension for all the players. So I think with that kind of action being taken, you could be a safe bet that there is more to the story and there'll be more to come. What's going through their minds? Making a quick buck? Selfish? Greedy? I just don't know. Greed is a funny thing, I suppose, but it's driven a behaviour here that is just so unsportsmanlike and un-Kiwi and un-Australian. Really disappointing stuff.
It's the yellow card one that's interesting. And look, I've watched back the footage last night around these instances, and as we say, obviously innocent till proven guilty, but it feels like watching some of those yellow cards, they weren't yellow cards that you would expect. How do I put this? That they were yellow cards that you really had to go out of your way to concede. Put it that way.
Yeah, look, it's funny, isn't it? Andy Harper in commentary at the time was sort of bemused as to how the bookings were occurring. I think he observed that they'd not made as many fouls, that they'd had twice as many bookings as any other side, Macarthur. And he made the comment, they clearly know what they're doing. So they're the kind of yellow cards, and you can take a yellow card legitimately in a game. You bring someone down when you think that that's in the best interest of your team. But when it's associated with hundreds of thousands of dollars being bet on these games and on the spot fixing around yellow cards, it just becomes so much more sinister. So, yeah, they are the yellow cards, very obvious yellow cards that were taken. And as we understand it, the investigation goes back till December and is a global investigation. So there might be more to run on the story. I think they've already said there's a 4th player who's interstate at the moment who will be asked the question as well. So there's more to run on this story, but it's an incredibly sad story on what should be otherwise a good day for football.
Do you think New Zealand football should stand down Clayton Lewis from any future All Whites fixtures?
Subject to their code of conduct. I wouldn't be aware of what their contractual obligations are. Obviously, the A-League have operated within their code of conduct. I'm unsure of the code of conduct that New Zealand football operate under. There's always this presumed innocent until guilty, but even the Macarthur CEO said that there is clearly something to this story. They're concerned with the well-being of the individuals, which I think is right. These guys will be absolutely mortified now. They'll understand the gravity of what they've done, and they're facing both criminal and within their profession sanctions that could be quite damaging indeed.
Yeah, you mentioned the Macarthur CEO. He said last night that the De Villa was full of remorse and upset that he did it. Those are quotes from the Macarthur CEO. So clearly there's something to it. I mean, do they think they weren't going to get caught? I don't know.
Well, clearly you would think that they thought they weren't going to get caught, because you wouldn't do it knowing what is at stake. De Villa, 33, at the end of his career, so making a buck on his way out the door. I mean, there's no justification. Clayton Lewis at 27, in the prime of his career, and with the All Whites having a better pathway to World Cups in the future, he's put all that on the line. I'm not sure it's a question of knowing what they were doing. This seems very dumb to me. It seems a dumb move. I think they've mentioned $10,000 for the booking. I mean, $10,000, is that enough to throw your career away on? I don't think so. So maybe the thinking just wasn't there. The top 2 inches weren't engaged. A quick buck might have been the motivation, but gee, I don't understand it. I'm sure many players will be looking into this and going, wow, how do you get involved in something like this? I think I heard Ben Sigmund saying you just know to stay away from this stuff. And, well, if the world of sport, as the world of sport turns, there's been multiple occasions where people have been had their head turned, and clearly on this case, it's turned Clayton Lewis's head.
That's the thing, isn't it? You hope it's not widespread, that it is limited to these 3, maybe 4 individuals, and not a plague across the league.
Yeah, look, you'd be horrified to think that it was any broader than Macarthur. You would think that it would be hard for it to sort of float across other sides in the alley without there being word of it around the traps. These things travel pretty quickly. I imagine this has been kept tight between a group of Macarthur players and some South American connections we read. So I imagine that's the story. But gee, I think there's going to be plenty written about this one, and I just can't fathom why these guys got involved in this kind of low level. Well, it's just a dirty game, and horrifying, saddening, very saddening.
It is. Just a couple of final ones on this one, because I do want to chat the actual game tonight with you as well, Chote. In your day as a player, did anything like this come across you as a player? I guess sports betting is relatively new-ish in terms of its hold on sport, but did anything like this come around in your day?
No, Craig Foster, who's of my generation, found the allegation shocking, and he raised the question, the Australian former international, but the link between gambling and sport wasn't around in our day. There were bookies around, but there weren't sort of big syndicates. Global booking, global gambling now is the go. I see it local, domestic level football, people betting on games in the Central League, the Northern League, the Southern League. To me, that's crazy stuff, because those games are just so hard to analyse. But there are people everywhere looking to get a few bucks out of the game, and it wasn't an issue going back into last century. This is a new phenomenon, and I suppose it's an added risk for the players, but they get plenty of education around it. They get plenty of advice. And it is about the people they put around them too. I just think with good people around you, you stay away from this stuff. And clearly, these 3 guys have fallen in with the wrong crowd. Do
we need to look at gambling in sport, do you think, and how its impact on the sport?
Yeah, 100%. You need to educate the players around it for sure. The issue of gambling in sport, that horse is bolted. There's no question that you'll be able to unwind it, but the risk that comes with that is the illegal gambling syndicates who can spot fix around bookings. I mean, it is the easiest thing in the world to do, is to take a booking in a game. And if you're able to hook up with an illegal gambling crowd, you'll end up, doing exactly what these guys have done. It's very, very challenging, I think.
David Chote with us on News Talk ZB. Chote, on a brighter note, what chance do you give the Wellington Phoenix of progressing to their first A-League final tonight?
Yeah, well, that's what I was sort of focusing on 24 hours ago until the story broke. Really looking forward to it. The sold-out sign's up. Look, they've got every chance. They finished 2 in the league, and that was no surprise. I've always sort of said that defences win leagues, but I think strikers win your matches. So when this game is done, the Knicks have to have scored a goal or two, so it'll be really interesting to see what approach they take. I suspect it won't be much different to the regular season play, so therefore I'm picking it to be a really tight encounter. For a neutral, and I don't know if there'll be any of those in the ground, an early goal is what you want because that just creates chaos and it'll be helter-skelter from there. But I suspect this could go long and late. You
mean 120 minutes and maybe penalties?
Yeah, well, I would pack up if you're headed to the stadium to know that you might be there later than you expect. I don't know about penalties. I think the Knicks certainly have goals in them, as do Melbourne. There's no doubt about that. But I think they'll be hard to separate these two sides in regular season play. Nothing between them, the odd goal. And I think that'll be the case again.
Yeah, I just looked at the game last week and it felt like maybe the Phoenix were hell-bent on defending, which is the right thing to do because, you know, as long as Melbourne don't score at home, and I know there's not away goals, but you take the psychological win. Through the games this season, though, there hasn't been a lot of goals. They've struggled to break each other down and get in front of goals. The Phoenix have enough strike power that they can find the back of the net tonight?
They have got the strike power, in my opinion. I think the players that were kept quiet in the first leg, and they worked their tails off, by the way, and I'm probably talking Ben Old, Barbarouses, quiet in an offensive sense. I don't think they'll be quiet for 2 games in a row. You'll get moments, I think, particularly Ben Old, I thought, really never got into the game away from home. Be surprised if he doesn't have moments. And Costa has proven himself as throughout the season as a really capable backup once Zavada got injured. And got plenty of goals, and he's sitting pretty close to some records to be broken, so it wouldn't be a wonderful fairy tale for Costa to score at home to take the Phoenix to their first grand final.
Which way is it going to go, David Chote?
Oh, look, I am just, what do they call it? You're focused, you're imagining, you're hoping with all of your will that the Knicks get across the line. But I'll be down to the bare nails because I think it's going to be incredibly tight. I didn't really want them to play Melbourne. They've always sort of had a bit of a bogey against this Melbourne side, but I think Italiano is, in setting out his side this season, has sort of broken a few of those hoodoos, if you like. So I say the Knicks get home, but it'll be tense. It'll be exciting. The one thing I would say, if you're turning up to the stadium, it's a participant event. You don't turn up to watch. You turn up to roar the Phoenix on.
Well said. David Chote, thank you for joining us on News Talk ZB this afternoon. Appreciate your time.
No worries.
That is former All White David Chote joining us on the program to discuss the Wellington Phoenix and also this betting scandal that has, to use a bit of a journalistic cliche, rocked the A-League. And I think it has overshadowed these games. It was everywhere through TV last night. It was leading the TV1 news, leading News Hub as well. And the fact that a New Zealand player in Clayton Lewis has been charged, and obviously, as we've reiterated a few times, innocent until proven guilty. But I want to ask to you tonight, has this overshadowed the A-League? And do we need to do something about gambling in sport? We touched on it there with David Chote. I'm sure I'm not the only one that enjoys a bit of a flutter on a sporting event. But has it got to the point now that money is so insidious and gambling is so insidious in sport that maybe we need to look at the way it is managed around the globe? I mean, this allegedly bloke was from South America puppeteering this whole scheme. Has this damaged the A-League for you and overshadowed the Wellington Phoenix? And do they get the job done tonight? Can you park what's gone on the last 24 hours and look ahead to the Wellington Phoenix and their chances of victory this evening?
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.